So I'm Cat, as already mentioned. I'm from Mend Assembly in Totnes, and the easiest way to think about us is we do everything to do with keeping clothes in circulation for as long as possible. So as you may have seen in the press, we probably have enough, I think they said that we have enough clothing already on the planet to clothe 6 generations of people. So we really are trying lots of different ways of working out exactly what we do and how we, in our local community and further afield, how we tackle that. So we started in our flagship in Totnes, and we have a fantastic space, a mill building right in the middle of Totnes, if anyone knows it. But we are also an affiliate model, and we have a few others opening in other locations across the UK and in France actually as well, in the next 6 months or so. And as I said, we're really about doing things within our community, and how can communities tackle the things that, the problems that come along with climate change, but specifically around clothing and textiles. And we do lots of things within that. We run lots of workshops. We have a permanent clothes swap. We have pop-up events as well, themed ones, where you can learn lots of things. We run our sessions. We run a repair service. And we also have people who work within our workspace. So it's a shared workspace, and people who have their own brands that are experimenting and kind of working out how we do things. And it's a really busy place to work sometimes. It's brilliant, but today very quiet because there's nobody here except me. So I'm going to talk to you today about visible mending, and I don't know what everyone's brought, but essentially it's a really, really simple patching technique that I'm going to talk to you today about, using a running stitch. And we often refer to it as sushiko or borrow stitching, and it's just the fundamentals of that, and that we really find is really useful for mending clothes. I've got a few examples here to show you. I've got some images, but I've also got some that I have mended in the past. These actually need redoing now. These are my daughter's leggings. This was my first ever attempt, and it's a really simple jersey patch from an old pair of knickers. Leggings always go on the knee, and it's just a blanket stitch around the outside, and this one needs redoing. This is a more recent one on the other leg, and I don't know if you can see, but it has it's got a heart patch with the same fabric, and then it's just got this borrow stitch across it, which is I think it's little stabs, but also in Japanese, but it is just a nice little running stitch, and then you can build up loads of patterns in that. You can practice, you can do everything that you want in that, and you can make it really visible. But once you know the fundamentals, you can also do it invisibly. You can do like exactly the same fabric patch if you find a piece from somewhere else in the garment. You can do it in the same colour thread. This I might be working on these today, so you can see I've already repaired back, but they have more holes in them because my kids get holes in everything. So I'm going to work on these, but I'm also going to work on another repair, which is a pair of woven pajama pants. And I darned these last year, but they have essentially what you do when you mend stuff is you may end up shifting a stress point in the fabric. So then they end up tearing somewhere else. So if I get time, I'm going to do this one as well. So I hope you've all got some nice projects lined up. So we're going to start with selection of needles. So I like to use this beast, which is a long darner. And you can get loads of different darning needles. You can get Sushiko needles. Traditional darning needles have a really blunt end, and they're great for knitwear, but for getting through layers of jersey or woven, it's good to have a nice sharp point. So this one's quite long because, again, you're doing the running stitch. It's quite good to build up loads of stitches rather than having to go in and pull your needle out and go in, pull your needle out. So you can do quite a few in a row. So it's a little bit easier to manage it. So that's my needle of choice. And I am using quite a thin embroidery floss because I want it to be able to go through. And in fact, this is a DMC one. and it's 10 grams and it's cotton pearl one. And I'm using this because it's quite easy to pull it through the fabric when you've done. So if you prepare your needle and your thread, and then I've pre-cut some patches, and the one that I'm actually going to start with is this little hoop here, so it's really easy to see. So if you have an embroidery hoop, that's fantastic. If you don't have an embroidery hoop, you could secure your fabric using, if you've got it on a sleeve or something, you could use a jam jar. You could insert, so if I was doing a knee on a pair of leggings, I will insert the jam jar into there, and then that's quite nice and secure, and you've got something hard to push against on the reverse when you're doing your stitches. If I wanted to do a really small area, I would use the lid to secure it on. So if you insert it into the fabric, and you can see then you've got almost like an embroidery hoop there. You can use a hairband or an elastic band or something to secure that. So again, you've got something hard to push against. If you have a really large area to do, you could maybe use something like a book, or I don't know, or a bowl, or a plate or something. You don't have to go out and get expensive equipment. You can just use the things that are lying around at home, and that's the important thing about this. You will find the thing that works for you, and each individual mend will have a slightly different thing that you can use. But don't panic that you haven't got the right thing, because you can honestly use anything as long as you can secure it and isolate that piece of fabric and keep it still. And it's preferential to have something hard to push against on the other side, so you can actually get your stitches through. But yeah, so I'm going to start with my little pink square on blue, so it's really easy for you to see. And I'm going to pin him into place before I go anywhere. So if you've got things to pin, if you've got some pins ready, and you want to pin it away so it's not going to tangle too much within your stitch. And if you want it to be really neat, just you could pin from the inside to the outside. Just to say, you can make your patch any shape that you like. You don't have to make it square or a circle or anything else. I have some other examples here of the ones. So I really like doing hearts for my kids because tells them that I love them. But you can do an oblong, you could do anything you want really. Just play with the shapes. And as I said, we're going to do running stitch, and as you can see from this picture here, this is another one that I've done. I've used that running stitch and I've run it around the outside of the heart, and then done another line on the inside and gone round in circles. You could stitch across, you could go in spirals, you can do whatever you like. So we're going to start with just a really simple running stitch, and I'm securing my patch on top of my fabric, and I'm trying to do it back to front of the screen whilst talking to you. And so that's just important to double check on the reverse that you've covered your hole, and your hole should be somewhere in the middle, and your patch should be bigger than your hole. I know it sounds like it's really obvious, but I've seen it done with really small patches that just cover the hole. And then what happens, as I said earlier, you can move that stress point, and then it'll create a ladder or a tear somewhere else, and you end up repairing again and again and again. And it will happen, but better to put a patch bigger than you think you need to start off with. So I'm going to just tie a knot in the end of my thread. It's a slightly annoying habit that I have, licking my fingers before doing it. It's not very good, friendly. So I have my thread, he's ready. And I'm going to pop him in through the back of the hole. So if you can feel where the edge of your patch is. That's probably a little bit too far in. and you probably want to secure as close to the edge as you like, as you can, so that it keeps it secure. So he's done from the reverse now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this down actually so you can see, so it's easier to work on here on the left. So I am going to work to roughly probably five millimeters, and I'm going to put my needle in and push him out again at about the same increment, and in again, and out again. So you see, I'm not pulling my needle out in between each one. I'm building up all of these threads, all of these stitches onto the needle at the same time. And that's really the benefit of using a longer needle, is that you can do that without having to pull your needle out each time. But it's whatever you really fancy doing, whatever you prefer. Try different needles and see what works for you. So again, I'm going in and out and in and out all the way to the end of my fabric, my patch.
Kat, can I ask a question about fabric when you're doing patches? Is it good to use fabric that's similar to the fabric of the thing that you're mending?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Lucy. Yes, it is much. It makes it much easier if you use a similar fabric as possible. So if I'm mending leggings, as I'm going to say that I'm doing now, I would use something else that's a similar weight of jersey to the leggings themselves. So in my house, my kids are forever growing out of leggings, so I might use an old pair of leggings that they've grown out of, or I might use an old t-shirt or an old pair of knickers or something with a nice interesting pattern. So yeah, a similar weight, but I think with woven, we do quite a lot of woven patches here, and again, something like a chino, we've worked out that obviously if you've got another pair of chinos to cut up, that's fantastic, or if you've got some similar fabric, but also quite lightweight upholstery fabrics are quite good for that as well. So we had a brilliant repair this week for someone's chinos, and we found this, and actually it's more like kind of curtain or really light homeware kind of weight, and that worked really well. She's got a lovely patch on her knee, and we actually machine stitched that one because it's for a customer, but if you're doing it yourself, or if the customer specifies for us, we can have some fun and use the borrow stitch and make a real feature out of that patch. And then we often, for things like outerwear and outdoor coats, we might patch it with something like an old scarf or blankets, really lightweight wool blankets. It's whatever suits the garment really, but yeah, as similar as weight and texture as well. So it's really important so for knitwear, sometimes if it's a really light cotton knit, we'll also use a piece of jersey or something that has a little bit of stretch in it as well. But yeah, if you use a woven on a stretch, it can end up, just because the woven doesn't have any give in it, it can end up tearing the garment in more places again. So yeah, so I'm going to, with this one I'm just going to go around the edge, and then I'm just going to kind of spiral it in. Has anyone got anything, I wonder if anyone's got anything that's like different to a really simple jersey or woven that they're patching? It'd be good to, I don't know if anyone can like hold them up and let me see what they're doing. Is that possible, Jess? Lucy, sorry.
That's okay. No, Jane's holding something up here. What is it? Oh, it's jeans. Jane's holding up a pair of jeans. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's patching the knee of them, it looks like.
Yeah.
It's a typical bit to go, isn't it? Okay.
So
if anybody else wants to comment, they can pop it in the chat and I can read them.
What I was going to say, and it's another tip that I learnt from someone else, is if you're mending stretch jeans, or also if you're doing something on the knee of stretch garment, it's what's the best idea with your stitching is to do them diagonally across the fabric rather than horizontally or vertically, because again, that gives them more stretch. So if you're doing stretch denim or stretch jersey, so on, I guess actually on these ones, it doesn't, I think that's why this is like a really, really old one again, but I think that's why it's kind of started to really go really shabby, is because there isn't taken into account, where this one, it has got those stitches diagonally across the knee. So can you see, like across the stretch? So actually that gives a lot more than the other one did.
We've got Tim holding something up in the camera there.
Oh, I can't see.
Yeah, I think, let me if I remove your spotlight.
Oh, I can see it now. It's a t-shirt, is that?
Yeah, looks like it.
It is.
T-shirt.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is anyone this is what the next one I wonder, is anyone being brave and tackling something other than just a horizontal or vertical stitch? No.
No, maybe not.
No. So I might actually, just to show you on this one, I might actually now go horizontally, no, sorry. I might go diagonally across this one just to show you what I mean as well. So I haven't quite gone all the way around the outside, but that's fine. And also another thing that I had to point out yesterday in the darning, I always forget to do, is don't be tempted to pull your fabric too tight, to pull your stitching too tight, because then you end up with bunching, and I've actually done it here already. But resist the urge to pull your stitches tight, because then when you're wearing the garment, then you want to have a little bit of give in those stitches.
We had a comment from Jane in the chat, a cat that just said, I blanket stitched the edge of a fraying pocket on these jeans, and it's tricky to type in, so it is definitely. Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah. Has she just done that now, or another time?
No, previously, I think.
Okay. Because blanket stitch has so many other uses, and yesterday I showed a couple of examples with you can use it as a really effective darn as well, and it becomes what I like to call like a cobweb stitch, and you can do it round and round and round a hole as well if you don't want to patch it. And you don't have to do that on knitwear either. You can do it on as the lady just said, you can do it on jeans, you can do it on anything. And all of these different repair stitches, they're all really versatile, and you can use them on different fabrics. But as I showed you here, darning perhaps wasn't the right idea for for this really loose weave of pajama pants. But equally, this is another thing I have to repair, and this is a silk shirt, a vintage silk shirt I bought a few years ago, and it was split under the arm straight away. And I sat on the train to London diligently hand stitching and darning that one, and then the minute I put it on, it split again, as you can see right next to it. And so this is what I'm talking about, where you shift your stress point in the garment. I don't know why that's not showing you very well, sorry. Great lighting. And it's really dark, there you go. So it's shifted the stress point and then it's torn again. So actually now I've got some silk patches, and I'm going to patch this another day. But being really mindful of the fabric, because it's really, really fine fabric, also because it's a vintage shirt. It's quite delicate, so I have to use a really fine thread with that one, and probably hand stitch, but also acknowledging the fact that that will probably go again, but then it builds up the story of the garment. And the more you patch, the more you build that story about the garment that you've taken the time and effort to repair because you love it. So yeah. So some other really useful tools for your repair kits you may not think about, but I always keep in my house a stash of oranges. And the reason I keep these is because they're really good for securing your garment on if you are darning them, but you can also use them to secure your fabric if you're putting on a patch. And I really like to use these, especially this time of the year, because they're pretty solid anyway if you get them fresh. But also if you accidentally stab through with your needle, it's a really nice aroma, orange smell. It's really, really beautiful. And it actually makes it, it's kind of like aromatherapy while you're sewing. So as you can see, I've managed to pucker mine completely. But when you get to the end of a line of stitch, you can just kind of tease your fabric out a little bit and pop it back into shape. I'm just going to do another row of stitch really quickly next to this one, and then I'll show you putting another line of stitch right across it, vertically again. Diagonally, and then it starts to build up a pattern. So although I'm not specifically teaching you sashiko or borrow, it's essentially how they build up the patterns within that technique is by building up lots and lots of rows of running stitch or stab stitches next to each other. And then it creates the beautiful patterns that you see in lots of sashiko artworks and embroideries and things. So let me get him lined up.
Kat, we had another question in the chat from Jane, which said, do you ever use chalk to mark a pattern to sew?
I tend not to, just because often when I am doing this, it's quite late at night when the kids are in bed at home, and it's always a thing I can't find. But you can do, and you can get some really good stitch guides as well. There's loads of people out there making templates that you can draw onto your fabric, and then that's your stitch guide. For use, I have occasionally drawn on with friction pens. Don't know if anyone's seen those. And it's basically like a ballpoint pen, but it washes off when you put them in the wash. But also they are supposed to it's supposed to come off with when you apply heat as well. So if you ironed it straight after applying your patch, that will take it off as well. But yeah, chalk pens are really good. Tailor's chalk, anything like that, you can draw them on there. I tend to kind of work freehand, which is why mine's always quite messy. But if you wanted, you could definitely. So I'm back in my corner, and I'm now going to run another line of stitch down here diagonally. And where they meet, I'm hoping it's going to create a nice little cross stitch pattern. And then I'm just going to go backwards and forwards and fill in that area.
And Kat, do you reckon this kind of technique works best when you're using a fabric that's contrasting to the one that you're mending, or do you think it's just depends on the fabric and your tastes, what you'd like to achieve?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's much more a case of that. I think you know, we have people bringing their things in for repairs here, and we always kind of listen to what the customer wants. Most people want their repairs to be quite discreet, but I think times are changing. I think you know, it becomes like a real conversational piece often when you're wearing a repaired item of clothing, and it's you know, it will often prompt a discussion about mending clothes and why you've chosen to mend them rather than replace them. And you know, as I said at the start, we have so much available to us already, and I think it's going to become something that we have to do, is we have to start thinking about using up what we have already, you know, for many reasons. But yeah, I think we're starting to see a change. You know, we do get the odd customer who brings something in for repair, and they're quite happy for it to be entirely up to us what we use, but we kind of show them some images first, and we check with them that the patch is what they want, or we'll give them a couple of options just in case, because you never really want that one that you know, you don't want to go to the effort of doing a repair and then to say, oh, I don't like that. It's not really what it's about. Yeah. As you can see, I'm kind of building up this now, and where they cross, still not even doing a good job of it, but where they cross, it starts to build a bit of a pattern. I'm going underneath one and over the other. Has anyone else used a template for stitching before? I wonder. And if so, how have you got on with the template?
It's easier to speak than chat. I've not actually used a template, but I have used chalk to mark out the grid lines because I wanted to do lots of crosses. So I wanted to make sure that they intersected, because I know what I'm doing right now definitely isn't going to, because I'm doing it freehand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done that in the past because a friend of mine's really into doing the visible mending, and so she's the one who's sort of got me into it. And there's so many examples if you just type sashiko into the internet, just I mean, amazing things that people have done. Yeah,
absolutely. I did a little course, not a little course. I did a little mum's mindfulness day a couple of years ago, and it was a beautiful day of like some yoga and some forest bathing and all kinds of things like that. And there was a lady who ran a sashiko session, and just sitting with a needle and thread, not thinking about anything else, was absolutely beautiful. And we're still trying to get her to come and do a session for us actually at Mend. I think when we first put out that we might have someone doing sashiko, we had so many people contact us and say, can we book? When's it happening? Yeah. So if and when you finish your patch, I'm going to jump onto another repair now and do something that's heart shaped, just to show you doing a spiraling thing around that, a spiraling pattern. But when you have finished your patch on the inside, if you push your needle back through to the inside, and then it's just an idea to do a couple of little knots just to secure the fabric. What I was also going to say at the beginning is you can also repair it on the wrong side. So you can, if you don't want it to be that visible and you just want some little stitches, you can pop your patch on the inside of the fabric. And then what you will see on the outside is just your stitches, if that's what you wanted to do. I tend to do this a bit more on my leggings because I'm a grown-up. But also I think because I can never quite find I think I need to bite the bullet and chop off a pair of black leggings, and I wear black leggings quite a lot. And also I think sometimes I want mine to be really subtle. So what I will do is I'll put the patch on the reverse, and then I'll use something that's tonal to the black, not necessarily black, but also not necessarily really obvious. So I will have the patch on the inside of it, and often you'll see a little bit of the hole, but actually through your stitching and running your stitching through it, then it secures that hole a little bit more. But what it also does mean is that you can see as and when it starts to get weak, because you can see, so you're not looking at, if you have a patch on the outside, that's fantastic, but often you won't see if it's starting to ladder or tear on the inside, and then you won't see it until it's too late. So as I say, with my leggings, I tend to do it on the reverse, and then I can see my stitching, and then I can see if it starts to ladder as well. And then you have the opportunity then to just do some more stitches and reinforce it a little bit more, or patch a little bit more. But you can end up with areas of patch next to patch again, so you can repair it right next to what you've already done. Build up layers of different patches, and as I said, it's a really nice conversational piece. And lots of my kids' stuff that they're actually wearing it today, so they wouldn't let me take it. But lots of their garments that are patched time and time and time again, their friends think that they're really cool, and it's just a really nice acknowledgement of the fact that actually you're living in and loving your clothes for that much longer. So I've got one here that I've prepared. So as you can see, this one is on a t-shirt, and I've cut some heart shapes, and for some reason they're rolling up today. But I'm just going to do I think actually maybe I'm going to do the stitch that goes around the outside of the heart, and then I'm going to spiral it in and in and in and in for you. Has anyone else moved on to a second one yet?
Just getting shaking of heads, Cat. I think they're not as speedy.
Yes. In disbelief.
You're making it look very easy.
Oh.
I'm very impressed with the multitasking. I definitely have pricked myself with a needle by now.
So this is quite a large hole on the reverse of this one. In fact, it's two little holes next to each other. So apologies, the red and pink never come up very well on the screen. But so I'm going to start in the bottom corner of the heart, and to pop that in as close as possible. To that bottom edge. And then, like I did with the other one, I'm going to run the running stitch around the outside. And has anyone finished one yet? I like Claire's comment about extending the life of kids' clothes when they're running around and climbing trees, which is exactly what they should be doing, isn't it, really? But yeah, and then also I have two children, same sex, and actually they have really similar tastes. And so number one will wear clothes, and admittedly we have lots of hand-me-downs, or I get lots of their clothes from charity shops, so they already had quite a good life already. But then it does mean that they go through quicker. So my first child will put a hole in something, and I'll patch it, and then the second daughter gets it, and then she puts a hole in them again, and then they get patched. And yeah, so my youngest ends up with things with laser patches, but she loves them, fortunately. But she did direct me and say that she wanted hearts on them, so hence why they're hearts. but you could choose any shape you wanted. You could do, I even found a pair of the kids' pajamas at home that had dinosaurs on them, or like Father Christmas as well. And the pajamas, sadly, the fabric is full of moth holes. And actually, we decided that what we'll do is we'll cut those up and use them as patches. So the little characters on them will become their patches on their clothes as well. So can you see what I'm doing here? So I'm following the shape of the outline of it. So now I can actually remove those pins because I've pretty much secured them on the outside as well. Does anyone want to see doing a blanket stitch, or have you kind of figured that one out already?
I'd love to see you do a blanket stitch, Cat, because I have no idea what it is.
Okay, do that for you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will do a blanket stitch on this with a little heart here. Just get another needle and thread. So anyway, I wondered if anyone had any questions about needles and threads and what to use, or is everyone okay with that one?
We haven't had any questions on needles and threads, but I have had a question from Jill that says, my work tunic's zip has broken. It's the bit you use to pull the zip up and down. Any ideas on how to mend that? Yeah,
so that's if it's the puller that's gone, has it still got the little metal hoop on it? Because if so, you can create your own puller. Oh, it hasn't, no. Pass on that one. No, ordinarily, if there is still a little hoop to attach something with, we would just put a new puller on, and you can make them out of anything like a herringbone tape, or any bit of fabric or ribbon that you've got lying around. But if it has come off, it's slightly more complicated. You could try welding. Ordinarily, if we get something like that in here, we would just do a straight zip replacement because often it's easier. But I am going to be looking into that a little bit more this coming year, because often the zip will run absolutely fine. It's just that you haven't got that bit. And a customer did tell me that in street markets anywhere else around the world, India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, anywhere, they're much more adept at actually being really, what's the word? They're really, they'll find a problem to everything without actually having to chuck any part away, and reusing the whole thing. So yeah, it's a tricky one. We don't really know. If you find an answer, you have to tell me, because we're looking at it as well. So with your blanket stitch, and this one's for Lucy as well. So I have popped my thread through, and I've started him at the bottom, and then I'm going to go from the outside of the garment. So let's work out how you can see this best. Tilt it down a little bit more. So I'm going to pop my needle back in just underneath the outside of that, and back into the same hole where I've started from, and pull my thread through. And then just before I pull it really tight, I'm going to put my needle back through here. So you want your thread to come from the back of this stitch. So can you see it's on? So I'm going to be working this way, but my thread is the other side of the stitch. So when I create my next one, I'm going to pop him in, again, probably about 5 millimeters, maybe a little bit more away. And I'm going to try and create the same size stitch again. So I'm going to pop him through. I've gone with really long threads today. I always tell everyone not to do it, but that's what I've done. And as you can see, he's back through that loop. And he's on the other side. So this is your blanket stitch. Can you see that, Lucy?
Yeah, thank you. I recognise it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
It's really good for securing edges. Obviously, that's why it's blanket stitch. But also just for, you know, putting patches on as well. It's a really lovely one. So here, he's back through the inside of that loop. And well,
We've got about 10 minutes before we need to wrap up. So just for you, Cat, but also for anybody on the call, if you do have any last questions while we've got Cat here, please pop them in the chat and I can ask them to her.
so with I think I mentioned, oh, someone's got a really good suggestion for the zipper. A tiny slit at the top of the zipper tip from each side to block it all the time. Splitting the zipper, yeah, that's the hardest thing to do, isn't it? Because often you can really easily split that zipper open. Yeah. Definitely, that's a great one, Val, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, you can, with your blanket stitch, you can use it for a cobweb knit as well. And I've got another example here to show you. So this is one that I did for a hole on my husband's cycling leggings. He didn't thank me for the colour. So if you work around just outside of the hole with your blanket stitch, and then when you get to the end, you jump it up to the next row and you do another row of blanket stitch and you jump it up again and again and again. Depends how big your hole is. And then as you can see, it kind of looks like a bit of an eye or a blanket stitch. Again, maybe I should draw them out with a chalk first and they'd be slightly more symmetrical. But this works really well, again, for on things like knitwear on elbow patches. When you've got holes in the elbow, it works really well also on really open knits. I also do this one quite a lot on things like dresses for my kids and for myself as well, because it's kind of a little bit more decorative, and depending what colour you do it, what fabric base, I've done it on more Halloween-y things and then it looks a bit more like a spider, or you can make it really colourful and fun, or if not, if it's on a printed garment, it kind of blends in a little bit more. So that's a really nice technique as well with a blanket stitch. And basically just building up all of your kind of bank of techniques so that when you have things to mend, you've got more than one option, because it might be that one thing might not suit it, might not suit the garment, but also, as I said, you know, if you end up patching and repatching several times, it's quite nice to have a few different techniques. And then you work out what works best for the garment as well. And I'm going to trim my thread because it's a bit too long. Yeah. So has anybody learned something that they didn't already know today? Is everyone kind of taking something away from this?
There's a few comments coming in. So you've got Yes, diagonal stitching to help with stretch. That's a good one. Jane's learnt about layering blanket stitch. I've learnt about blanket stitch full stop, which is great. And Jill says she's learned lots. There was another question from Tim as well. If we're trying to embroider over a hole, should we patch it first?
It depends on what it is, but ordinarily, yes, we would. It depends on the size of the hole, but yeah, something behind it as to strengthen the fabric. So if it's something really lightweight, something that's like a silk or a bit of handkerchief or something kind of really, really lightweight would be quite good. But again, just matching it to the weight of the fabric is quite key. Again, we have a lot of things like reinforcing buttonholes. It's the type of thing that we get quite a lot to mend, or replacing a shank button on a pair of jeans. And it happens quite a lot with really lightweight jeans or modal or something like that. We get quite a lot of those to do, and finding similar fabric to reinforce either sides of the hole before you then put that button or the shank back on is really crucial, because it will just pull through again otherwise.
Kat, we've just got Tim, or family of Tim maybe, holding up their mending to show you as well.
Ooh,
if you can see, it looks great.
I can't see it. Oh, is this here? This one?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
And Jane as well. Well done. They look brilliant.
Nice. Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone. They look great.
That's really cool. It's really nice to see things that people have done afterwards as well. And I'm sure that Lucy will say, but if you want to post it on social media, we have social media as well, obviously. Eden Communities and this Festival of Discovery as well. But we are just at Mend Assembly on Instagram and Facebook as well. And we'd love to see them. We'd love to share them if you'd want us to as well, because it's always nice to see what other people have done. We know how we work. We want to know how you work. Has anyone else got anything they've done that they want to hold up? No. Oh, thank you for that, Lucy.
That's no problem. Yeah, I've just popped the Mend Assembly website in the chat, and you can find the links to social from there. Tim's holding something else up. Been very productive in this 40 minutes, 50 minutes.
Looks like, is that pocket repair? Looks great.
Well done.
Yay.
And this feels like a good time to tell you that we also had Cat and Joss from Mend Assembly on for some sessions previously as part of the festival. So I've just put the link to the Festival of Discovery in the website, in the chat, sorry. And if you click on the session page for each of those sessions, you should be able to see the videos of the recording, and that's where this one will go as well. So we had darning with Cat yesterday, and then this morning we had Joss converting an old t-shirt into a bag that you can use. So both, yeah, brilliant things to do with slightly worn clothes, or ways to repurpose clothes. So yeah, do check those out.
I can see people still beavering away. It's great. Like it. Lucy, are you going to go home and try mending some bits with a blanket stitch?
I definitely am. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think we all have piles of clothes, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a handy thing to be able to do.
Yeah. Definitely.
Ah, that's a nice comment from Val, who said, for adults, if you do one visible mending, I've heard if you do 3 total areas, it doesn't look like a mend, it looks intentional. That's nice.
That's a great one. Yes. And it's true, you know, it really builds up the story of your garment, and, you know, especially having the opportunity to talk to people about why you mend your clothes and why it's important to look after them. And I think that's just going to happen more and more, isn't it? These are good skills for the future as well, Tim's kids. It's really good things to learn. And it's great to see young people doing it as well. It's really nice. They're sitting there sewing. Fantastic. So here you go, Lucy. I'm going to show you this. I'm nearly finished, not quite. I think, yeah, these always hold for a little bit more. As I said, like that other one at the start, it's really ratty now, but it's probably about 3 years old. It will last quite a while. Yeah, you can see the difference between the old one and the new one.
It's really nice. I think my mum must have used blanket stitch to patch stuff of mine. It's reminding me of my own clothes from a child, I think. So yeah, yeah, it's really, I like the contrasting thread as well.
Yeah. But
oh,
you don't have
sorry,
to
Cat, carry on.
No, you go.
Val's just had a question about where to find the recording. I had to miss some of the audio. No problem, Val. I'll pop the link in the chat again. But basically, the Festival of Discovery website, which is festivalofdiscovery.com. If you look on the programme and find the page for this session, which is Visible Mending, the recording will go up there. It might not be today because we've got lots of recordings to upload, but it will be there within the next few days.
Fantastic. There's my little heart blanket stitch. Here's the start of my heart with the running stitch around it. And then, I mean, I wouldn't call any of these finished yet. There you go. So yeah, some really nice little techniques, and hopefully that will help you to mend your clothes and to talk about them too.
Bro, we've just got a couple of minutes left. Do you have any last top tips for anybody, Kat?
Top tips: go nuts. Don't be afraid.
I love that.
Mending things, and also don't be afraid to use bright patterns, to be really bold, make it really visible. But equally, don't feel the pressure to do that. You know, you don't need to. This would work equally well with a fabric that's matched to the body color and a body color stitch. You can make it really subtle, you can make it really bold, and also don't be afraid to experiment with shapes of patches and different fabrics and play with things. And I think that's the important thing about all of this, is just to be really playful, and it is a really playful thing. So yeah, that's my top tips.
That's a great top tip, thank you. That's really, really good. I've loved seeing you all beavering away with your mending. It's really nice. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for showing us what you've been doing, and thanks for all your comments. Yeah,
thank you, everybody. It's been really great. And I really like seeing what other people are mending too. And you know, we're all about kind of upskilling and teaching people new skills and helping you to help yourself as well, really. It's really nice. And thank you.
Bro. Well, I'm gonna wrap up and leave you all to carry on your mending at home. It doesn't look like anybody is gonna stop anytime soon.
No.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you very, very much to Kat. It's been a brilliant session, and I'm sure, yeah, we can all agree we've learnt lots from her. So yeah, thanks again, Kat. Thank you very much. Happy mending, and lovely to see you all. Thanks again, Kat.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.